This is a new day, a new beginning.
What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. So on Wednesday, Bad Batch Season 2 premiered with 2 episodes. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down both Episode 1 and Episode 2 of the Bad Batch. Now, in the first episode, it's called Spoils of War. Now, in this episode, we get to see the Bad Batch again, but they're on a mission. And when they go, obviously it doesn't go correct because we have Wrecker, Echo, and Hunter going to grab a chest for Sid, who needs it, and we have Tech and Omega on the ship, and Tech has Omega learning about the Imperial ships on the scanner, basically like schooling her, making sure she's the best at what she does. And we see that the plan doesn't go right because as we see Hunter, Echo, and Wrecker run from these crab-like creatures, and they call for backup, and Tech and Omega help them out, and we see that Omega is getting better and better with the bow, which I feel like she's gonna become like Legolas as somewhere maybe in the at the end of season 2 maybe. But yeah, they complete the mission and they get back to Sid, and Sid is like, hey, I got this other job for you. You gotta go to Sereno, to Dooku's castle, because he has riches that'll help us, and if you get it, you could be free. And Hunter's like, no, we just want to be done with it. And they're like, if once they're done with Sereno, what makes you think that they're not going to come here? And so Hunter's like schooling Omega on like ships and stuff, and then the 4 of them, Echo, Wrecker, Tech, and Sid, are talking, and they agree that they need to go do it. And then they all tell Hunter that they need this job so they could finally be free. And while they're on the ship, Echo and Hunter have a conversation about what they can do with Dooku's fortune. And Hunter is like, we shouldn't be doing this. This isn't a life for a kid, meaning Omega. And they're like, this life is because of Omega, because we got her, because we escaped to Poca City. And then Omega overhears them, and she's upset because it's like, because of her, that's the reason why they're doing all these jobs, so they could be free of doing all this stuff. And it's like, she just feels devastated because she feels like because of her, they can't have a normal life. And when they get to Sereno, they make a plan, and Hunter's like, you guys go get the treasure, and I'll do the distractions. So while Hunter is planting bombs on these fighters, you got Tech, Echo, and Omega are looking for anything high value. They do find high value items, and then basically they're like, how Dooku obtained it, and they say that he conquered for many worlds during the Clone Wars, and to basically just fund his war effort. And Omega questions, is like, that's what we're doing? Or isn't that what we're doing? And Echo's like, depends on how you see it. And at this point in time, there was a patrol coming also, and Wrecker, being Wrecker, stuns one of the patrol officers and brings them onto the ship because they were about to be discovered. And then after that, they get a call to call in, and they're like, shoot, Hunter, you gotta make a distraction because we're about to be noticed. And he sets off the bombs, and after Hunter makes the distraction, Tech, Echo, and Omega get off with Wrecker with them so he could pick up and carry the cargo. But as they're gonna do that, the patrol officer calls them and tells them to take off, closing Omega, Echo, and Tech off from Hunter, and Wrecker off from those 3. And Hunter and Wrecker gotta basically just fight their way to the ship to see what they can do, and they basically just fight off the patrols. And as the 2 groups are basically away from each other, Hunter and Wrecker are fighting the clones in Dooku's palace, which I thought was pretty cool, but we didn't get to see anything cool in there, which I thought we would. But they're basically in his chambers, and they have nowhere to go, and Hunter's just pushing buttons on Dooku's pad thing, and then they realize that there's a trapdoor into them, and then they break it by Wrecker's big butt, jumping up and down on it and breaking it through, getting them to the ground floor. And now, as this is going on, Echo, Tech, and Omega are on the ship and trying to find a way out and fighting off the clones that are on the ship. And when they do that, they realize that we could use escape pods to basically get off the ship. And as they thought of that, the clones were like, hey, they're trying to get off the ship. And then they eject all of the escape pods and basically just, they have no way off the ship now. And while they're up there trying to figure out a way out, Hunter and Wrecker are basically climbing down out of Dooku's palace and trying to find and going into the city to get away from the clones, because they're not going to win if they stay in Dooku's palace. So as they're climbing down, Echo, Tech, and Omega basically just launch the cargo, because Omega realizes that if the cargo gets launched, then the jets will stop it from the jets on the cargo will stop it from falling faster than it would, and then it would be safely descended to the ground. And then as it's falling, that's where the episode cuts for episode 1 on to episode 2. So basically episode 2 starts off exactly where episode 1 ended, and this has Tech, Echo, and Omega. And yes, I'll be saying Omega a lot instead of Omega. Sorry, that's just the way I am. But this one basically has them falling with the jets working for a slower descent, but it still ends up crashing and slides off a cliff where it's just hanging by a branch. Basically like the scene in Jurassic Park where you have the van truck, whatever it's called, the vehicle hanging from the tree. It's basically like that scene. And then as they're trying to get out of it vertically, a box lands on Tech, crushing his leg, breaking it. And at this point, it's like they're one bad batch member down, and basically now it's up to Echo and Omega again to basically help Tech out and get him up, and then they obviously get out. And then Omega wants to go back for the treasure because it'll help them find a normal life. And Echo just says, forget it. We need to find shelter and get out of here, because a patrol will be coming back for this crate. And they walk off. So as Tech, Omega, and Echo are walking through the woods, Omega notices someone watching them, and she sneaks up on him and asks him who he is and what he's doing here. And it says that his name is Romar, and he takes them to his shelter because they have no place to go and they're outnumbered. And after that, the clones realize that there was heat signatures coming from the cargo, and so the captain realizes that they're still alive and that he fans out to go find them. And this is where Hunter and Wrecker are devising a plan to pretty much get out of there or distract the clones. And when Romar brings them to his house, they talk about the chest and basically how Dooku funded basically his war effort. And it wasn't also from stealing from other planets, it was also stealing from his own people. And that's why his city's basically in ruins. And they offered to help get it back for him and his people, but they're like, they want nothing to do with it because of what it brought during the Clone Wars and stuff. And Echo also suggests to have Omega watch over the old man, because just to make sure he's not doing anything shady and is not working with the Empire. And when Omega goes down to help see what the old man is doing, just watching him, he gives her what I thought was pretty cool, a kaleidoscope type thing, which I thought was pretty cool. It reminded me back in the childhood days when my cousin had one. I would just basically just spin it and stuff. But yeah, when that's going on, they're talking. Basically, Hunter and Wrecker go to these separatist tanks and basically just try and make it work again. But the clones notice them working on the tanks, and they're like, shoot, we're trapped. And then as the V-Wings are coming in, Wrecker has a plan, which is very interesting. And he takes the cannon of the of one of the tanks and uses it to blast the V-Wing and basically just start shooting at the clones to basically just make a getaway. And as that's going on, Echo comes back from patrol to make sure none of the clones are tracking him, and that's when they all notice that Omega's gone and that Romar's repelling equipment is missing. So Echo and Tech basically are like, we already know where she went. She went to go get the war chest because it would help basically them out and basically just everything, was because this was the last mission that Sid gave them, and then they would finally be free of it. And so Omega goes back to get the chest, and Echo follows after her. And when Echo gets there, we realize that Omega's already rappelled down in to get the chest of shinies, as she calls it, or as I like to call it, shinies. And basically, when that's going on, Wrecker and Hunter are basically going back to the ship to help blast more clones out the way and basically just clear a way to go get Tech, Echo, and Omega. And while that's going on, Tech follows Omega and Echo to help them up out of the cargo hold. And let me just say that Tech is doing this all on a broken leg right now, so props to him. Echo and Omega are talking, and Omega basically tells Echo why she's doing this is because you don't have a normal life because of me, and if we get this, we can have a normal life. And Echo's like, you have to let it go because it's not worth her life for the shinies or for anything valuable. And then Omega realizes that and is like, yeah, you're right. And then they climb up. They try to climb up, but the thing starts sliding down again. And while all that's going on with Omega and Echo, Tech is basically just fighting all the clones that arrive to the chest, and he's doing all this on one leg. And the clones have a heavy cannon, a mounted cannon, and he's basically just fighting them off, stunning them one by one. And then one clone gets the upper hand on him, but Tech is able to fight him off, and he just collapses from exhaustion until Romar comes and helps him up. And then after all that, Tech and Romar help Omega and Echo up because Omega and Echo jumped up onto a cliff when the cargo hold just slid all the way down to the bottom. And when Tech and Romar help Echo and Omega up, an LAAT gunship, had to pronounce that correctly, starts shooting at them, and Romar takes a speeder bike and tries to pull up Omega and Echo, and Tech is shooting at the LAAT gunship and brings it down. And while clones are also coming behind them with speeder bikes, and Tech basically spins the gun around and shoots at them too. And then while all that's going on, Wrecker and Hunter come off and help the rest, and basically just help Tech, Echo, and Omega onto the ship and leave Romar where he was. And on the ship, Echo and Omega have a heartfelt conversation about basically what they were talking about before, and that if they didn't help her and help her escape and basically do all these missions, they probably would have been fighting for the Empire instead of against them. And that's what I believe too. So at the end of the episode, Vice Admiral Rampart comes and basically just talks to Captain Wilco and basically tells him about his report and what happened. And Rampart is like, you put some misleading information in the report, and that Clone Force 99 is alive. And he's like, no, I didn't. I saw them with my own eyes. And Vice Admiral Rampart is like, no, you didn't, because they were killed on Tapoka City on Kamino. And he's like, no, I saw two of them with my own eyes. I'm pretty sure that was them. And then Vice Admiral Rampart's like, either you change your mission statement or I will. And he's just like, I'm not going to change my mission statement. I'm not going to lie to protect you, and I'm not going to lie in my mission report. And he's just like, fine, I can't have you spill what you know. And so Vice Admiral Rampart shoots Captain Wilco, and Captain Wilco falls and presumably dies. And basically from them talking, that we know that
My master could never be as vile as you.
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him.
Then I will avenge his death.
Whoa. Soka. Let me know about anything. Let me know how your day was, whatever. But I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.